G'day and welcome to New England Today, and my guest today is Elizabeth Rosser.
You're not part of their ongoing treatment plan, you're just there as the first step to say, hey, I see you, I recognise that something's not right, here's what we could do, how can I help you, do you want me to talk to someone for you? That sort of thing. So, and it covers everything from anxiety, depression, they talk suicide awareness, self-harm, mindfulness as well, after some very deep, and then how to recognise psychosis and things like that as well. So it is a 2-day course, but it is well and truly worth every minute.
Elizabeth Rosser is about people. She's about the land, but always people first.
Well, I suppose it's in helping people, we are helping the land, because without the people, we can't actually do the Landcare. And I work with a lot of farmers throughout the New England.
With farmers, there is a strength within. I'm from a farming background, and
Yep.
there is a real strength that you have to have. It's not do it my way or the highway or anything. It's more like we just got to survive through this. But that can become pretty wearing after a little while, can't it? If you don't have support.
That's right. And a lot of the times the farmers, it's especially men, it's very hard to get them off the land. The women quite often chasing children and have those support networks, and women being women, that's what they do. They develop those networks. But sometimes getting the men to leave the farm can be difficult. So we try and run a lot of events that enable that social connectedness but with a farming focus on the subject matter. But we try and have, that before and after, and the lunch and the dinner, and the smokos, trying to foster those relationships and make it validating, not just about farming, but about, getting out, making those connections and having some time away.
It's interesting you say when you said it was hard to getting the men away from the farms, you're just talking about getting him to some sort of function, getting him off the property, get in the car and come into town.
Yeah, so that's my husband, because we've got 3 young children, and it's if someone's picking them up from school or doing the sport, and it's 98% of the time it's me, and I get really excited when I have a day when I don't have to leave the farm. Whereas with him, sometimes it can be like the whole week or 2 weeks, with he's like, oh, I haven't actually been anywhere or done anything. Oh, yeah, I've got a drug run today. I've got to go and get some stuff before we process these cattle, so I get to go to town. But with me, it's the total opposite. So, yeah, it is just finding that time to get off and making it worth their while. Giving them something, it is worth their while, obviously, getting off the phone, but giving them something that makes it think, where you're not pushing the social factor. Sometimes I think it is, because a lot of them would not take that time if it was just the social.
Yeah, it's a bit of, no, don't worry about the small talk, let's just get on with the business.
Yeah. But it is that small talk and those connections that really help. I've recently just finished a 2-year project with the University of New England called the Drought Resilience Pasture Landscape Project, and it will involve farmers groups from all over the New England, usually fairly localised groups, and over an 18-month period they spent time on each other's farms in groups, looking around, and they really watching that social connection develop from the very beginning, where everyone was a bit like, oh, hi, my name's such and such, because not everyone knew everyone, to just how comfortable everyone was with each other towards the end, and the laughter and the chat in the rooms or on the walks and talks was just fantastic, and one of probably the best outcomes of that project, I believe.
It's an interesting thing that you've just pointed out too, that people are not so socially connected as they once were. Maybe I'm a dinosaur. Well, that goes without saying. But I come from an era where the connection with your neighbours and anyone was so important. It was, you would have social functions all the time. It'd be, some dinner at your place or dinner at somebody else's place and functions. Has that disappeared a bit, has it?
Not completely, no, but it just feels like there's so many extra aspects to running any business, not just a farm. And and the women are working as well as the men, and it's just that time factor. And sometimes there's just so much on that how do you pick and choose what you go to, and learning to say no when you're burning out, and what is actually going to benefit you if you do take that time. I think that is a big thing, because yes, we're only fairly new to the New England. We've been here for about 3 years, and while I do know my neighbours, I don't see them as regularly as growing up on a farm in Western New South Wales. We saw our neighbours, or what I remember as a child. We don't seem to do those tennis days and those barbecue lunches and those things that really used to be important. And nowadays, my age group, we're running around after kids at sport on Saturdays, my parents didn't do that. That wasn't available to us. So it's a very different world.
Yeah, that's interesting, because there's the easier, I guess, getting around, just that sort of technology, but also what we're doing right now. You can dial somebody up, you can be on your laptop,
right.
You've got social media, you've got all that stuff too. So maybe the isolation is not there so much, but the actual face-to-face connectivity is not so much.
Yeah, that's correct. I'm just... another thing we've done with Landcare is we've just completed a series of 3 mental health first aid courses, one in Gyra, Walker and Uralla, as part of Primary Health Network grants, and something that did come up with all those participants, and they were very well received, and absolutely fantastic course. And I highly recommend everyone did it. But one of the things that we did talk about is that we're nearly too connected online, and we're not getting that face-to-face, and it's especially what am I trying to say? It's with our young people, they're especially losing that skill, that face-to-face skill, as I talk to you online.
Yes.
So
well, but there is and I'm not arguing here, but there are levels of that. But in some cases, to be able to break away, and in particular, we're lucky because I've only just moved back to the New England after years of being away, but my abhorrence with offices and the sterile and forced labour that feels like not labour, forced friendships and colleagues, and the words they have to use to say they're either a friend or they're not. Always in the country, you kind of pick the people you want to be friends with, and that could be just because of the business, or it could be because they're just friends. But it got ugly. In the cities, it's quite ugly now.
Yeah, I don't have any experience really with living in the cities as an adult, so I can't actually comment on that one.
Lucky you.
Do enjoy small communities, and I find some people say they're isolated, but I think a lot of the times, like if you get out and you join community organisations like your local PNC or CWA or your show society, and it really does help you get to know those people, and that's something, I'm a big advocate for. If you're feeling lonely and isolated, there are those community groups, and a lot of what they do is to help combat that feeling of isolation, and it also gives you a purpose and a meaning, and it's quite fun.
Yeah. Is there much take up in the ideas once people are at some of these functions? Are people accepting what you're saying? They are? Good.
They are, yeah. Very prevalent. The mental health first aid, some people went as part of their work, etc. We all just walked out of there, aside from the fact that it is quite a heavy couple of days. But with so much more knowledge and information, and to go forward and tackle what is really a blooming mental health crisis in regional and rural areas in Australia. So it is, people do need an open mind when they go into things, but as with anything, but yes, you do, especially when they connect with someone that's like, oh no, I've been there, I've done that, or I've experienced this. And a lot of those days is about that connection. From, it doesn't have to be the mental health first aid, it can be any of our other workshops. It's experience that connection and having that chat and finding somebody else in the same situation can really help with those social dynamics. And
I'm intrigued, and I know this is not specifically what you do, but it's something that intrigued me when I firstly heard it: mental health first aid. I get first aid. I did it, but
yes.
I wouldn't know where to begin with mental health first aid. What is that?
So it's really, it's like normal first aid. It's learning how to be the first responder to someone that's having a mental health crisis. So you don't have to treat them, you don't have to talk them off the ledge, etc., but you are there to point them towards the services that can help them. And as with normal first aid, if you are not comfortable in a situation, like, you do not have to give that treatment. But it's about recognizing the signs and symptoms and knowing to say to someone, hey, I think you're having, this, how are you feeling? How long have you been feeling like this? And this is some of the things these are some people you could reach out to that can help you.
Okay. That's brilliant. So it's that first identification and then knowing what to do after that, which is probably, and we've all seen people struggling with depression and anxiety, but knowing what to do, that's really important.
That is, and you're not part of their ongoing treatment plan. You're just there as the first step to say, hey, I see you, I recognise that something's not right. Here's what we could do. How can I help you? Do you want me to talk to someone for you?
Yeah.
That sort of thing. So, and it covers everything from, yes, anxiety, depression. They talk suicide awareness, self-harm, mindfulness as well, after some very deep, and then how to recognise psychosis and things like that as well. So it is intensive. It is a 2-day course, but It is well and truly worth every minute.
Absolutely, and then the full cycle comes back to how that impacts actual Landcare. How, if you're in a good state of mind, you're going to work well, aren't you? You're going to be able to make sure your business works.
So with Landcare, the reason we sought this grant is obviously we are out and about in the community, and we do a lot of one-on-ones with farmers out, and sometimes it's almost like we're the psychologists. And after watching people, how they went through the droughts and then the bushfires and then the extremely wet years and the drop in cattle and sheep prices in the last 12 months has been, and the suicide rate in regional and rural Australia is quite disturbing. I believe we lose 9 a week, and you just don't hear about it, which is more than 1 a day. And just having those skills to be able to help people, if you are the person, they haven't seen anyone for 4 or 5 days and you turn up and they start to offload on you, it's having those skills to be able to help them so that they can move forward towards getting better, rather than just falling back into that pattern once you leave again.
Yeah.
Speaking to a lot of people that have attended, we had people from like local vets and teachers and council workers and social workers and some large businesses around Guyra and Armidale, and just being able to recognise that in their workplace and workers, and how they were all affected, and people they knew were affected, especially during the 2018-19 drought. Lots of stories coming out of that. from those times, and people want to be more prepared going forward, because there's nothing we can do to stop a drought, but there is a lot we can do to help our communities survive that, because a lot of communities that do really well during droughts, they're the ones with the community connection.
Yeah.
And not just droughts, natural disasters as well.
Yep. Well, interesting you say that. I know growing up where I did east of Urella, when there were fires through there, this is a strange thing, but everyone jumped on board. Everyone was in. Everyone was fighting. And it probably not OH&S, but there were kids there. I was a kid. We were all out there doing it. But the camaraderie after that, that connection between the people who were doing the work, who were fighting these fires, even if it was just, running water or whatever to get these fires done. If that essence of that could be grabbed before, so that was just the standard way of doing things.
You've got those networks and you're not turning up like, hey, I've never met anyone in this room, lost my house or whatever. It gives that, you've already got that network to help fall back on, and people know where you are and how you're coping, and also it's that follow up. So there's all that camaraderie following that, but then it sort of all dies away. And that's a lot of the times where people's mental health can really suffer, is once the adrenaline rush has and the next big things come along, it sort of just gets pushed under the rug, and that's when a lot of people can fall apart and really start to suffer post traumatic events.
Yeah. Can we just talk about you for a minute, because I've got to get your background right here. You're obviously with Landcare now, but you got nursing in the background.
Oh, I didn't quite finish that degree.
Oh, you don't need to say that. Just say yeah.
Yeah, sure.
But sustainable agriculture. You've been a governess. Tell me to stop if I've got the wrong ones here.
No, that's me.
Applied science in production animals. You've got you've worked with beef, chooks, free range. This is, and the interesting one.
I even did 6 months in a dairy just to round myself out.
Was that on King Island or somewhere else?
No, that was in South Australia. No, didn't milk any cows on King Island. We had beef cattle.
Okay, so but you were the thing I want to know about is neighbourhood houses you were working with on King Island.
Yeah,
we got a small population of, what's the population on King Island, which is going through a bit of trauma.
About 1,500, give or take.
Okay, so what's this about? What's this neighbourhood houses thing?
So Neighbourhood Houses Tasmania is a Tasmania-wide organisation. We do have neighbourhood houses here as well in New South Wales. So they're sort of your first port of call if you're struggling, like I can't put food on the table this week, or Christmas is coming and we have no there's no presents, or we've got we're really struggling as a family and we need a safe space to go. So Neighbourhood Houses offers lots of that sort of support, from food vouchers to free meals on certain days, etc. King Island was a little bit different because it is such a remote place to live. We didn't have, it was a reasonably affluent population because you just simply could not afford to live there. If you were below the poverty line, basically. We offered a lot of different courses I remember offering mental health first aid there as well. And then it ran the community gardens and the men's shed, and there was everything from cooking and sewing workshops to community groups and mothers groups, etc. And it was, they even sent me away to train, as we didn't have any swimming teachers on the island, so they sent me away to do my Oz swim. So I could teach swimming on the island because, as you can imagine, water everywhere. So it was a little bit terrifying. So it was sort of very much led me into, I absolutely loved that job, and Landcare were very much more sustainability focused now, but it is sort of, it's the same thing. You have to be the jack of all trades and event management and a people person and doing all that sort of thing. So it's, yeah. The community house, I still follow them on Facebook. They have some great things, and I'd love to see something like that in this area, with the kind of activities they used to offer. So.
It'd be, I agree. And it sort of harks back to what we were saying before, back maybe not so much for you the old days, but old days for me, where that community, that sort of stuff happened anyway. If somebody was struggling.
Yes.
There was the barter too, eggs for apples. It was all that stuff.
That's exactly right.
And it's incredibly important for any community, and particularly now that maybe, I may have this wrong, but I think the cities and the regional areas have split even further. There's a not so much community in the cities anymore. They're just looking after themselves. Even the little families have sort of disappeared, and everyone's out for themselves. But there is room, I think, in regional Australia and particularly the New England to be able to foster that sort of behaviour, isn't there?
That's right. I know the Gyra Neighbourhood Centre certainly does a good job with Tuesdays. They have free lunches available for all, and they offer food vouchers, and they have their community garden and their produce swap. And because that's my sort of near where I live, that's what I know the most about. But yeah, there's some fantastic things that happen in small rural communities that are very, unique valuable to small rural communities. Yes, as you said, you don't usually see that in the cities where people aren't as connected with their neighbours.
So how do you get people motivated to do that again? What is it that we need to do to drive them a little bit, people to get out and do it? Because I got to say, I'm a bit guilty. 3.5 months back in Armidale, and I'm connected with my family and maybe one or two friends, but there seems to be, this living isolated seems to be a thing at the moment. We probably need maybe just a hangover of COVID. I don't know.
I think it is, because I know a lot of the volunteer organisations have struggled since COVID with halving or even more of their volunteer population, and it's getting, and people, in some ways actually quite enjoyed that, being at home and not having things on. And I think we may have learnt to say, possibly, I know I personally am not as involved in as many organisations as I was pre-COVID, now post-COVID, just for my own mental health and to have a bit more time. And I'm not sure how you get people back, because not only is the population ageing, but we've also got the population of our volunteers is not only reduced, but we have a very ageing volunteer population, and people are busy. It's a really tough one, and I don't have an answer for you as how we get people back out there. I think it's not something you can force people into. It's something they need to find themselves.
Unless you're the Premier of New South Wales and just tells everyone to go back, and that's yeah, absolutely well said.
I do recommend, if you're feeling isolated and alone and you don't get out much, I highly recommend join your local Rotary or your Lions Club or one of your community groups, because it gives you a fantastic outlet and a real purpose in life. It just adds something.
Yep. So what's your...
hard to explain.
No, not at all. Connect, go out. It is a bit of a challenge, and a good challenge is something that it takes you out of your comfort zone to a certain extent.
That's right.
So go out there and join.
And everyone's got something they can offer these organisations, whether it's because you're a people person or you're good with finances, or, you can make a mean cake for a bake sale. Everyone has something to offer, even if it's just, bums on seats or boots on the ground. Everyone has something that they can offer.
Beautifully said. You've got to put that into a poster.
Yeah.
It's good. So you're positive about the future?
I am. I'd like to have a positive outlook rather than pessimistic. So fingers crossed.
Yeah, I think, and I guess, yes, you said you're relatively new to the New England, but you're certainly not new to regional Australia. You know it inside and out. Do you see the New England in a different light to other regional areas you've been to? Do you think this is better or worse or the same?
No, I don't know if we've been extremely lucky or it is just how regional and rural Australia works, but we've found absolutely beautiful communities wherever we have gone with that. And there's that real feeling of social connectedness, and I don't know if it's just not my husband and I, because we do tend to get out and get involved in the community as a way to meet people, whether that has really helped us. But we do love the New England, and we're unlikely to move anytime soon. But I can't. There's nothing that I can say, hey, this is distinguishes completely from, King Island versus Western Australia versus South Australia, or even Western Queensland where we lived over a decade ago. So no, I think it's just a small town time, and sometimes you just get lucky and meet the right people that introduce you to someone else, and it all snowballs from there. So,
well, that connectivity is what you're after, I guess, and that's what we're all after. And hopefully, for our future as people, but also for our businesses and our economic future too, and obviously looking after our country, this sort of work is so important and so valuable, and we all need to connect. That's
right. And I know I sit here saying, oh, you just need to go out into the community. And I know that is not for everyone. I'm lucky enough that is my personality, and I'm happy to do that, but that's not everyone's way. There's a myriad of different opportunities for people to get out and to meet people and get to know people in their community. So,
all right, we'll take your advice and get out there right now.
Yes.
Elizabeth,
I feel like I'm up here on my soapbox preaching.
We'll get up on the soapbox and preach if it helps and gets people out there. And we're all in the same boat. We all need to get out, and we all need to connect. And
yes,
if we're going to be a good community, and we can probably lead, I reckon. Even if our small community, we can be the shining light. Let us be that.
Yeah. We're extremely lucky here in the New England. Like, this is the least remote I've ever lived. With just access to services and access to each other, and access is just so easy, so good.
Fantastic, Elizabeth.
I will whinge every day about the drive to the bus stop for the kids.
How far's the bus stop away?
It's only 11k.
Oh, that's all right. We used to do. I think we did 9 or 11k's too to the bus stop. Yeah, and that's okay. It's not good in the winter, but it's okay.
Yes.
All right, Elizabeth, thank you so much for your chat today, and I feel a bit more enlightened. Thanks for your time.
Not a problem, Richard.
Elizabeth Rosser. And if you'd like to know more about that story, jump onto the New England Times. That's our news portal. There's that story and many, many more. We cover the New England constantly. And if you like what you're seeing here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It's important. All of what we do is free, and we're going to remain that way, free. But doing things like hit the subscribe button, at least we know you're watching, so we can keep producing this sort of material. But if you can do that, read the New England Times, and I'll see you soon.